One.
Boom, and welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Shin Gear. I'm Jeff Stanfield with the world-famous Andy Shaver.
They don't miss. They don't miss with any of their products. If you're going to be in Nashville next weekend, Shin will be there.
February
obviously.
13th, 14th, 15th, come by and see us. We'll be at the Boss booth, but we will also be going by and hanging out with the Shin guys a little bit.
A lot of our sponsors will be there, but if you're wanting to try on any of the garments or whatever, Turkey Fest will be a great place to go try it on before you buy it.
Highly recommend that wax coat. Whew, kept me warm when it was cold. It's a very good
All
jacket.
3 days of cold that we had here.
We had 4.2 days of cold. It's going to be cold when we get home, too, from Mexico. With us today, our good friend, Michael Demboski, known as Ski. Ski worked for us for a little bit, helped out around here, was a great asset to the city of Knox City, moved here, is a retired air traffic controller, and trains dogs now, and does all kinds of crap I'm sure that he's going to tell us about. Ski is obviously the smartest guy in the room, and if you don't believe him, just ask him.
I got a shirt that says it.
There you go.
M-I-K-E. Man, I know everything.
Man, I know everything.
That perfect name, too, then. So, you're a retired air traffic controller.
Yes, sir.
The helicopter wreck the other day,
Yeah.
there's conflicting reports about all this. Now they're saying it's the DEI stuff, and she was a lady, and she really didn't have no business being in charge of that shit, and they scrubbed all of her stuff, and I don't understand all that. Who is at fault? The helicopter, the airplane, or the controller?
Okay. Let me put my preface out. I'm no expert.
Right. Okay.
I had to go to court one time, and as a federal employee,
expert witness.
Yeah, they told me I could not be an expert witness to make sure that the jury and the judge all knew that I was not an expert witness. So the first thing I do is say, raise your hand and put your hand on the Bible and swear before God, and state your name. And I go, well, I'm no expert. But, and then every time the judge or somebody asked me a question, I'd preface it with, I'm no expert. And the judge looks at me and goes, did he depose you? I said, yes, he did. And they settled out of court.
So you're not an expert, but you know this.
Yes. I have been, just for the folks, I have never been on an IFR tower. There's different levels of towers. I ran a VFR tower on the coast in Sabine Pass. Worked for the federal government in the Army, FOC South, which controlled the aircraft in South Korea. Actually, it was flight following. Worked at Gray Army Airfield, which was one of the 3 approach controls that the Army had, and then hired on with the FAA and worked, retired with 30 years in 2007. So a lot of the rules have changed, but they've got regulations that won't fit in that big box. And you got to know.
And you got to know every one of them.
Yeah, you don't get to look them up. You're not a judge. You don't get to thumb
Right.
through a paperwork and say, oh, it's the,
Yeah.
You got to know them.
You just got to have it on hand.
And if you don't know them, you're going to jail. But anyway, I believe the controller did everything right. But that's just me. I believe, and let me tell you this, I had a plane out there that I was going to bring in, but so anyway, the pilot of the airliner sits on the left seat, okay?
Yeah.
The pilot of the airplane, or the helicopter, sits in the right seat. So there's different traffic patterns.
Now, hold on now. The person in charge of the helicopter sits on the left side, right?
Right.
No, he sits on the right side.
But the lady was flying was on the left side, I thought.
How do
And
you
she
know?
was running, because I read the report on it.
That's because
She was the co-pilot, but she was flying. But she was flying the. She was in control of the plane.
That's correct.
There's 3 pilots on there, and I don't understand how the 3rd pilot would fit.
He may have been a pilot, but he may have been
There wasn't either. There was a load guy. There was 2 pilots on load, and those planes were used to fly VIPs. That wasn't like a typical Blackhawk.
Yeah. And she was one of Biden's.
Yes, she was. She was one of. She was a prop for them because she did all their DEI, LGBT, QG543, whatever the fuck they call them people. She did all that stuff.
Okay.
But she was at the stick when it crashed.
Yes.
And they said that she should have been able to see. The poor American Airlines guys, they were doing just exactly what they're supposed to do, right?
So Just to give you an idea, runway 1 goes north and south, basically. It's actually 010. 360 is north, so it's 10 degrees from due north. And so 33 comes across like this. So they run the approach into runway 1. So about 8 Mile final, the American Airlines captain requests to land on runway 33. Now, the media said that it's very seldom used, and I don't know because I haven't been there, okay? And that may be true. It's just like at Abilene. You've got the main runway. If you land on it, you got to go all the way to the end of the runway and then taxi all the way back. If you use a cross runway, you're right there at the
gate,
terminal. The terminal.
Yeah.
So 33 is that way. So if you land at 33, you got like maybe 200 yards to get to the terminal. So that's why they approved going into there. And you got to have the right winds. If you got a northeast wind, you can't land there, because now you're landing on a crosswind.
Right.
But the winds were favorable for runway 33. He requested it. The controller approved it. So he comes in and he shoots the approach to runway 1. And when he gets out about 3 or 4 miles, he circles around to line up for runway 33. The helicopter is coming off, and it's called an MTR, a military training route, and it's to the east side of the airport. And so, and she's supposed to be, she may have been in, I couldn't really tell because I've got a video on my phone.
I could probably pull it up too.
Of the
crash?
The actual what the controller was seeing on the screen. I don't know if you can get that. I'm probably not supposed to have it. But anyway, so the helicopter is headed south, and they're supposed to be 200 feet or below.
Right.
For that MPR. And it's like a river run. It's, they use it there because they get by. Now realize that we have different rules. We have rules for VFR airplanes. We have rules for IFR airplanes. We have rules for VFRs and IFRs inside TCAs, which is like an upside down wedding cake. It's tiered.
Right.
The further out from the airport you go, the higher it is. Well, they're right inside it. So they're supposed to be controlled. And they were under the VFR rules. The pilot of the helicopter was talking to the controller, and he issued the traffic, and the helicopter replied, we have the plane in sight, would like visual separation. And so I'm not sure, that might be the only thing, and I don't know the rules inside. Like I said, I never worked the tower there. I don't know what they are, and they certainly could have changed since 2007. So they told, the controller told the helicopter that was approved. And he also told them to go behind the jet, the CRJ.
Right.
Go behind them. So this helicopter's coming south, and the plane's coming north, but it's going to turn northwest. So it's come in on runway 1. It's got a circle, and it's got to swing out, to where, because that plane, when it's in a turn, it's setting sideways. And when they're flying level, that cockpit is always tilted up. The plane is always tilted
Right.
up. So the pilot can't actually see below it. And when they're in a left turn, they can't see anything. Even the co-pilot.
Everything's blinded to that side.
Yeah, because that plane's up and they can't see through the floor. And so helicopters have glass under the floor so they can actually see. But that's for different reasons also. But anyway, when that pilot turned to come in on runway 33, totally blind to that helicopter. Cannot see it. I mean, if he did, he saw maybe the flashing lights because they all have to have flashing lights.
So when they crashed, they were in a bank. So they got hit from the backside.
They got hit from the underside.
Right, but it hit towards the back of the plane too.
Yes, yeah.
It hit like behind the
missed.
fuselage.
So the controller told the helicopter, go behind the RJ.
Wouldn't the jet wash have messed up the helicopter too? Probably. He was that close?
No, that's the CRJ is pretty small. They all have jet wash, but it's relatively ineffective on that.
Is it? You're not supposed to be so many distant. You're supposed to stay so far apart, right?
Right.
How far are you supposed to keep them apart?
If you're using visual, you just have to be comfortable with what you're doing, and that's what the helicopter said. I want visual.
Right.
We have the plane in sight where we'll use visual. The controller responded with, go behind the RJ. So the helicopter's coming and they're nose to nose, but this helicopter is supposed to be 200 feet or below. Mm-hmm. The regional jet is required to stay at 300 feet until
final descent.
Until it turns and levels, mm-hmm. and then it can descend in. And so what happens, and it's all set up on the approach plates for the airport for that situation. And the MTR is there, and they know the MTR is 200 feet and below, and that plane has to stay at 300 feet till it's clear of the MTR, and then it can descend and land.
Right.
And so, which is basically the banks of the river. Mm-hmm. It's iffy, roughly. But basically, you don't have the line is there, but you basically use, visual. You got to be clear of the river, and then you can descend. So that the helicopter's supposed to be coming down on the river, mm-hmm. and so the plane turns, and as they're coming, when you say go behind him, now as me being the intelligent level that I am. I know that plane is coming at me, but it's going to make a left turn because I'm right next to the airport.
Right.
And so go behind would mean I should take a left turn.
Right.
If I'm going to miss
when they bank.
Miss when they bank, I'm going to go to the left.
Yeah.
You can see on the radar track of that helicopter that it turned to the right.
Ooh. Whoops.
And it was at 300 feet when they collided.
So why do you think that they were above the 200-foot threshold?
I would think because she wasn't paying attention, but that's just me.
Right, right.
A lot of it can be equipment. Mm-hmm. The altimeter could have changed because even when you're hunting, you can feel the pressure changes. Yeah. So, they're sitting on the ground at the airport, and they dial in their altimeter setting, pressure 2992 or whatever it is. As soon as they get airborne, it could change, and going over that water, there's a possibility that there's some change. But they're within tolerances. Mm-hmm. And that helicopter said, we'll use visual. The controller said, go behind. That helicopter, if it was going to deviate in any direction, should have deviated
left.
To the left or to the east, because the airport's to their west, because they know that plane's coming in and going to make a left turn, mm-hmm. and they didn't. And so how she, could have got fixated on the plane, right. Going, holy cow, that's close, but she actually climbed into the plane and actually turned into it.
I've got couple of friends are helicopter pilots, and they told me that they think she was when she said she had visual, it was a plane on the ground that was taking off. She was looking at a different plane. Now, I'm not.
Well, I know what the controller told them. Now, You don't hear it on the tape of the
black box,
because everything is recorded on the controller side. But the only part I heard was the VHF. I didn't have access to the UHF frequencies because that that's a restricted, that's a military frequency, and
Here's this. I don't know.
DOD said
We can
shut everything down that the
try to
military
listen
was
to it.
doing.
If it'll play, maybe. Hold on.
November 5342 on Mount Vernon visual, runway 1.
Blue Chief 5342, Washington Tower, 1 star, 32, Zurich, 17, cross 25, you take runway 33.
Yeah, we can do 33 for Blue Chief 5342.
Blue Chief 5342, that's a Wilson Bridge, change to turn for runway 33, clear to land.
Change to runway 33.
So hold on,
runway
before we
33,
continue here,
Okay.
will this pause? Who are we listening to here?
You're
I know we're
listening
listening
to-
to. Why is this not
It's
pausing?
DC Tower.
I know that is, but this other voice, the J voice, is that the helicopter or is that the
Jay's the
American?
pilot, the
Is that-
American.
That's American.
Traffic 2 out, no delay, runway 1, clear to take off.
Take off runway 1, no delay.
That bottom one. That's the actual radar track.
Washington Tower, American 3130 with you, runway 1.
American 3130, Washington Tower, 1 star, 31, Zurich, 14, cross 25, runway 1, clear to land. Traffic may depart prior to arrival.
Okay, clear to land, runway 1, American 3130.
Just a routine day.
Up until the last 20 seconds.
CS 789, contact don't mark today.
Okay.
American 3130, slow the funnel.
Slow, American 3130.
Pad 25, traffic just off the Wilson Bridge to CRJ at 1,200 feet, start runway 33.
Okay, that's where he tells. That's where the controller tells Pat 25 is the,
Is Pat 25 the helicopter?
is the helicopter, and he just told the helicopter that that plane is coming in the runway 1, but it's going to circle around and go to 33.
So she could have been looking at the wrong plane. I mean, there's a bunch of different.
Well, if you tell me I'm looking for a plane that's coming in to land, I'm not going to
You're not
look at
looking
the
on-
runway.
you're not looking on
for
the
a
ground.
takeoff.
Common sense.
Right.
Back to that old thing that
There
we
you
were
go.
lacking.
Again.
Now, what about the now I also saw the other day supposedly that now they're coming back and saying they were running a training exercise with night vision goggles. Now, when you have on night vision goggles, and I've not worn those, I'm not a pilot. I'm not pretending to be. I'm being a naysayer on this thing. So,
Okay. I'll explain how that works.
can
Go
you
ahead.
see with them night vision goggles? You're blinded by light, right?
No.
You're not.
No.
So
The
she
old
should.
ones you used to.
She should. So the new ones, she should be able to see an airplane. So here's where I'm getting at. Ski.
Under the training program, and like I said, it's been 15 years since I even looked at a plane.
Supposedly they were pulling someone. They was flying to the White House in case it's attacked. And they were doing a training exercise to take VIPs out of there and go back. So that's
Okay.
what the whole thing was set up for, supposedly.
Okay. Irregardless of what their pretend was, when she is flying the plane and she's under the IFR goggle, because they're in an MTR, which requires visual separation, and they requested visual separation, the other pilot must not be under the
Night vision?
night vision program. He's got to see and be seen. And even though, and that's what it is, that's a training program. So if I'm training you, just like if I'm driving, we got two sets
Right,
of pedals.
right.
If I see you about to do something stupid, I'm going to slap you in the back of the head, and then I'm going to take over.
Right.
Okay. I've got the steering wheel. I've got the pedals. When I trained controllers, and I told the FAA for the 30 years that I was there, I'm no instructor. I am your world's worst teacher because I teach by bad example. And I can give you a couple of students that I had to teach, and while they were my student in that program, they hated me, but when they got done, they realized that I probably gave them some of the best training they could ever have.
Right.
And they appreciated it. They were ready to have me fired while I was their instructor, but afterward they shook my hand and said,
strung
thank
up.
you. And so, but anyway, even at that point, I'm sitting and that, let me tell you something, that's even harder than what those pilots are doing, because I'm watching that kid and I have no idea what he's thinking.
Right.
But there might be 15 to 20 to 25 airplanes. Most airplanes I ever worked on the sector, bad weather came in, hurricane weather came through Dallas, and I had 68 airplanes on my frequency at one time. And I was being instructed by a guy named Glenn Miller. And God bless him, he was the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. And I pitied him that he had to train me that day. But I worked it, and I was scared to death. I did the job. And you think about a screen where you have an airspace this big.
Yeah.
You got to keep 5 miles or 1,000 feet, and sometimes 2,000 feet. And you put 68 airplanes in that. That's a...
Now, is Glenn, when you had the 68 airplanes, was Glenn... You said you were training. Was he ready at any moment to,
Yeah.
okay, this is
Yeah.
above Skeet's head?
And that's what he's got to do. Mm-hmm. He's got to sit back there and trust me to do everything until I can, and being the student, I can say, it's yours.
Right.
And he's got to step in and take it.
Yeah.
Or he can tap me and say, it's mine. And he can step in and take it. And so, you know, and so you got to trust your controllers. You know, you got to trust those kids. And one kid that I was training was on a, you know, my supervisor was telling me, oh, he's ready. I'm like, no, he's not. I said, he's having a problem with overtakes. You know, you issue these speeds to the pilots and say, maintain this speed. And then back then, there was 3 people in the cockpit. There's pilot, co-pilot, and engineer. And the engineer is tasked with the fact of making the most efficient money that airplane can do
Right.
for the company.
Right.
So the pilots would get a restriction from the controller, reduced to 7.6 for spacing. You know, you're a 727 behind a DC-9, which DC-9s really suck.
What's a DC-9?
It's a McDonnell Douglas airliner. It's probably one of the most efficient planes on the market at that time, because we didn't have regional jets and stuff. 727 was a moneymaker. It could do, you know, it could fly the wings off something. We call it ears laid back. You know, he could just go.
Okay, let's go.
So, but anyway, the engineer would go, oh, we're going too slow. And he'd kick the speed back up without telling the pilots. And then the controller would look and go, hey, are you doing that speed? And then the pilot would look and go, shit. And then he'd yank back on the throttle a little bit and go, yes, sir, we're doing 7.6, which in fact, the engineer had kicked it up to 7.9 because that's the best operational.
That's good
speed.
That's good for the company.
That's good for the company. And so, you know, they weren't talking because, like, we're all 3 here with headsets and we can hear what's going on. That engineer doesn't have that ability.
Oh.
So you two, pilot, co-pilot, know what's going on, but back here as the engineer, I don't.
The engineer's just doing what's best for the company, so he's not in contact with the tower.
Right.
All right, we'll get back to the helicopter.
So anyway, the helicopter is doing that stuff. The one of them, whoever it was, is under the hood, and we call under the hood whether it's night vision goggles or whatever. And what that does is that blacks out light because when you fly that mission under a certain circumstance, you're going to go in just like when they did Bin Laden and stuff. They go in with no lights.
Yeah.
You know, you're flying by the seat of your britches, no lights, no help. And so you've got to have whatever light. And that's what one of them was doing, whether it was her or whether it was the other one. And I read the thing that said one of them had 1,000 hours flight time and the other one had 500. Well, I know what it takes to be a pilot for the Army. You're almost going to have 500 hours in a helicopter when you graduate.
She said that's what they said. They said she had 250 hours when she graduated from flight school.
Yeah.
In the last 5 hours, she had only accumulated 50 hours a year.
Yeah.
So I mean, she was not flying much. She was more of a prop for him. Here,
Right.
this is my question I have. So she's flying into it, and she hits the back of this airplane.
Right.
Okay, and flew right into it, and she didn't have light vision. She didn't have the goggles on. He did, or one of them did.
One of them did. One of them didn't.
How I don't understand. As bright as them fucking lights are on a hell, I don't understand how they didn't see this airplane coming at them.
I don't either.
And so that's my this is my next question now. And this is going down this.
In all reality, let me say this: 100%. That helicopter says we've got the CRJ in sight. We request visual separation. At that point, the controller is relieved of the responsibility of separating those two airplanes.
Right.
And the RJ is relieved of the responsibility, because once she says, or he says, or whoever in that helicopter says, we'd like to maintain visual separation,
That's on you now.
that's totally on that helicopter. And I don't care what they say or how they say it. They can crucify everybody else involved, but the onus is on that helicopter.
When they said that, then American Airlines feels like it's safe just like any other flight. We don't even worry nothing about it.
That's right.
And so they get blindsided in the back of the plane.
He knows we're going to go in here and they can see us and they know what we're doing, because he heard the controller say that CRJ is making the approach to runway 1 and he's going to circle and he's going to come into 3-3. So it's going to, anybody that's ever flown into Reagan knows that you're going to come in on 1 and you're going to circle right over the river and drop down in on runway 33. And they're coming down the river. And that helicopter's supposed to be at 200 feet or below, and that regional jet's supposed to be at 300 feet or above. And that's not a lot of separation. I understand that.
And the helicopter was at 400 feet.
When they hit.
Yeah, which was too high.
Exactly.
Trump even said that. He said it's too intentionally too high.
And so when Trump said it's a DEI problem, all my buddies go, well, that bastard, he's picking on controllers again. I'm like, no, I don't think he is. That controller did everything. We didn't know any information on that helicopter because they blacked it all out.
Right.
They did not put out any information on who was in that helicopter or what.
He had a piece of paper within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Told him who the crew was.
Knew.
And his DEI deal was he knew that lesbian lady, and I'm not knocking on lesbians at all because I'm not doing that. But
well, your dad used to say he was one.
Yeah, that's right. Always a lesbian. That's right. She screwed up.
Yep.
And my thing
I don't know if she screwed up, because here's the deal. If she's under the screen, and I don't know who was under the hood.
Someone in that helicopter screwed up.
But if she's under the hood, she has no idea what's going on with that helicopter.
What?
I do know that I saw the track, and the controller actually told the helicopter to go behind that RJ.
Yes, I've heard that.
Okay. And so you're nose to nose, and you know that RJ is going to make a left turn into the airport. So if you're going to go behind them, you're going to turn east or to the left. And that you can see the track. Did you see it on
Yeah, I saw it.
You saw where that track kind of, the helicopter turned to the right and if they'd have just stayed straight, they'd have missed. But instead, that helicopter turned to the right. Whoever on that helicopter made the decision to make that 10 or 15 degree right turn, even if it was 5 degrees, because like you said, he hit the back end of the plane, they would have missed. It would have been the closest miss in history, but they would have missed.
This is horrible. First of all, there were 7 waterfowl hunters from Maryland on there, and my prayers got to their family. And I'm not trying to be insensitive to any of that stuff, because there's a lot of good families. Those 2 little girls. The whole thing is just it's heartbreaking. Any kind of tragedy like this is. But we can't have nothing normal happen in our country. We can't just have an incident happen. It was a plane crash. Now we're to the point where people are starting to ask, why did this lady scrub all of her stuff was scrubbed, every bit of it, and makes you wonder, could this have been a suicide? I mean, I don't know how else you can screw up this bad. Ray Charles, if he didn't have a mask on, could have seen this thing coming at him.
Basically, whoever was under the hood was Ray Charles.
No, but the
Basically,
other
they can
person,
just see the
but the
instrument.
the other person.
Should have known.
So
better.
you got a freaking airplane at night. It's dark. I mean, it's got a
So-
big ass light. I know there's lights everywhere, and I'm not a pilot, but I look outside windows when I fly all the time. You can see planes all over the place flying.
And I'm not saying that she is the culprit here, because I don't know who was under the hood.
Right.
But whichever pilot was under the hood is not at fault. The one that's at fault was who was in charge.
But it makes you wonder, why did they scrub all her shit? That's what I'm saying. We just can't ever have nothing simple happen. There's always got to be something else. And here we are.
They knew it would be DEI screaming and stuff because of Trump, and I don't know who made the decision to not release her name, because everybody else's names were released.
Yeah, who cares if she's gay or not?
Yeah.
They don't have a damn thing. I mean, that don't make you a good pilot or a bad pilot.
And my buddies were hollering, "Oh, DEI, this, that, and the other." And I'll be honest with you. When I worked there, and you got to know my history from when I was a kid. My dad, the government paid him to move his company to Louisville, Mississippi, and that was during the 1963. So that was when the 3 civil rights workers were buried in the
Mississippi burning.
Yes, yeah. So that was one of my hometowns, is in that. And that's where we moved to. We were leaving. I was a little baby, but my mom and dad, actually my dad, had a choice of going to where Fort Bragg is. Is that
North Carolina?
North Carolina. I always get North Carolina, South Carolina confused. But anyway, that was their. They had 2 choices: there or Mississippi somewhere. And the federal government came in and said, "We want you to come down." They built them a 15-acre building to put their plan in and stuff and do stuff. And it was a good life. But I also had 2 crosses burned by the KKK in my front yard.
Did they not know you're white?
boy.
They didn't know you was white?
Yeah, they knew I was white
But why would they do that in your
He's a
yard?
Yankee.
because I was a Yankee.
Oh,
You've been
You
around
know,
ski a
I
lot.
was-
You want him in your neighborhood?
I was a kid, and they burned it because my dad, came down and they made we were Catholic, and so
The name Demboski really does not blend in
it
with
doesn't
Bubba.
blend in with Bubba. Yeah, there's no Bubba Demboski. Actually, my son was Bubba Demboski. But anyway, so I grew up knowing that stuff happened, and I was a EEOC counselor for the government for about 4.5, 5 years until I cussed some lady out and dropped an F-bomb
what's
on her.
EEOC?
Equal Employment Opportunity
Oh.
Commissioner.
Okay.
And so that was a volunteer job.
Remember when I used to claim a Democrat all the time around here? That's why.
Yeah. And so I didn't like the Bushes. And,
Well, I
and
mean,
he-
turns out you might have been correct on the Bushes.
Thank you, Andy.
So-
See, I always loved you better than him.
You were on that. We talked about that. Ski reminded me of that earlier too.
You were 20 years ahead of your time. It's
the
looking
one
like.
thing I got right, I got to say on radio, man. So I'm cool.
Do you agree though that the DI hiring is killing our country in a lot of spots? You should hire the best person for a job, regardless of what color, who they sleep with, what religion they are.
So let me explain how that works. You take a test as a controller. Now, I don't know about the rest of the stuff, but as a controller, I took a test. And they gave me all kind. When I joined the Army, they gave me tests, and I maxed every one of them. And the guy told me, "You don't need to be here. You need to be over there in school." I said, "Well, I'm white, and they won't let me in that school."
Oh, because of Mississippi?
Because
DEI.
they had rules and regulations. and they were
Affirmative
given
action.
Affirmative
is
action.
what they called
back
it back then.
Right.
yeah. And so I took the test and I told him I wanted to join, and God bless him, I don't remember his name, but he was my enlistment recruitment sergeant, and he kept throwing my paperwork away, and I'd go back. And I went back for over a year. That's how stupid I was. I went back for over a year and finally got enlisted, and the war ended, and they got my date to go to school because they only had two schools a year for air traffic controllers. And that's what he told me I should be. And I didn't know why. I didn't even know what one was. I'll be honest with you, I had no idea what one was. You know, I picked cucumbers my whole life, and I'd sooner go to Vietnam and kill people because I could shoot back. I couldn't shoot. If I messed up a cucumber, my daddy was going to whoop my ass. And so I had a fighting chance over there. But anyway, they did that stuff. So you took your test when I got out of the Army, I took my test to be an air traffic controller, and I maxed it 100 points. And so they did what was called veteran preference. So if you were a veteran, you got 5 bonus points. And if you were a veteran that served in a combat zone, you got 10 points. Although I got shot at and had a gun held to my head while I was in the service in Korea, because I told you, the North Koreans came down and killed 2 of our officers and had a big brouhaha. And if anybody doesn't believe it, go look up it's called the Paul Bunyan incident. It happened August 18th of 1977. I was there. It was ugly. And we were told to stand down. So anyway, it's a long story, and that'd probably be a different one. And I'm sorry I'm taking up.
I'd like to hear the Paul Bunyan story. I've never heard this.
Yeah, so it used to keep me awake at night. So I used to jump up in the middle of the night and scream. And the Army didn't offer anything to help for that. And when I came back, the VFW, American Legion, all of them said, "Fuck you! You're not one of us. You lost the war. Get out of here." So
no help.
Yeah, it was just me putting it in a backpack, and I'm sorry some of it's coming out.
It's all right.
One of these days, something will probably release it, but it'll take something big, but you just keep it. And so anyway, you take the test, and they give you the bonus points. And so the FAA has always said we've never hired anybody that had a score of less than 90. Okay. And I think that's true. I think it's actually like 92 or 93 from when I was there. Now, since 2007, I don't have those availabilities. Right. But when I was in EOC, we had those records because someone complained that they didn't get hired. We had to see why. And then we had to address that. And so anyway, I don't know if they gave the same points toward color or nothing, but I do know when I was going to school, I had a buddy change his name to Rodriguez so he could go to school.
No shit.
Yeah, and all they looked at was the last name and assumed he was Hispanic.
And that's good enough for them.
And that was good enough.
Oh, I'd be a black Muslim chick right now if I was going back to school. Looking right now.
But anyway, that's how they did the preference. That's how you got preferential treatment. They gave you bonus points. And I only know about what they did for veterans because that's all that applied to me. Now, whether they did it for anybody else, but I will tell you this, I know some great guys that are black, and they're hella controllers. They're probably better controllers than I'd ever dream about being.
They should just hire the best people.
I really don't think that they would have got that job without preferential treatment. That's my personal opinion.
Right.
Because I've been there and seen that, and I've been through the EO process to where I had to look that stuff up. And it's a shame that the country was that way back then. But you have to realize I grew up in Mississippi. When I came to Texas, the Army was supposed to send me back to Alabama, and my CO overseas, because they talked to me about joining Special Forces and stuff after that incident and stuff. And I told them they could kiss my white ass. I wasn't.
You were done.
I was done. I said, if you'll let me out of it right now, I'm gone.
But do you think that the DEI hiring by the government has hindered us? I think so. And not just government. I think everything. Fire departments, police departments. You should hire the best person. Regardless, if you got a job opening up and there's 10 Muslim ladies who are the best at it, give them the damn job.
That's right.
I don't care who you are. If you're the best at your job, because if you come to work for me, I'm going to hire the best guy.
Just in baseball, tie goes to the runner at first base, And that's what they're saying.
Right.
If there's two guys tied, and one of them's black, one of them's white, the black guy gets it.
But it's not even that.
Because when I was a controller and I hired on at the FAA in 1981. I was working a VFR tower down in Sabine Pass, and that's all we worked were helicopters. Every now and then we'd have a float plane come in, but they moved me to Fort Worth, and when I walked in the door, there were two black guys. One of them was a manager, which was a second or third level supervisor, and he was a cool guy, but he was reserved, Mm-hmm. And then another one was a supervisor, and well, there was three because there was a controller. God bless him. I loved him to death, but he was there, and he was and when I that's all I saw. And you're talking a facility of 200 people, and I know there was more black people around, but they weren't controllers.
But I'm not talking about just DI on skin color. I'm talking about the whole thing. You ought to hire the best person for a job based on merit.
Right.
Like when I got out of
human nature has proved that if this guy is a KK, and I'll be honest with you, I'm probably going to have another cross burned in my yard. My wife's going to divorce me for it. But when I was a kid, you could go to the bootlegger on Friday night and see these cars, okay? Because Mississippi was dry. You could not buy liquor in Mississippi except certain people could.
Yeah.
Okay? And these were those certain people. And they would go to the bootlegger and buy their alcohol. And Saturday night, those same cars would be at the KKK meeting, and Sunday morning they'd be at the First Baptist Church.
You pissed off all the Baptists.
And and that may be why the second cross was in my yard. I don't know.
When I first moved to Knox City, I always heard that the Knox City Baptist Church on Sundays meets up there, and on Saturday nights meet out at Esther's at the liquor store by the Spot Box. I used to hear that all the time.
So, but anyway, that's we had that saying, and but anyway, if those people are in, and who's to say they're better or not better? Because you're looking at the papers and somebody gets to make that decision. Mm-hmm. And it's a proven fact that those people aren't getting the jobs because just like I said, in 81, it was 100% white. We got our first cross burn in our yard because my daddy hired a female black lady to be a shop foreman.
See, I guess I'm...
And hang on. And she was that way because everybody that worked on that line that she had of building clocks was from her neighborhood, and she was a deacon in her church. And who better to lead them? Mm-hmm. Really and truly, who better to lead them?
I agree.
And so he picked her, and they got mad at him. And the guy who they got mad, who said should have been there, my dad had already talked to him and said, "You're not getting this job, but I'm going to explain why, and you'll know why in 2 weeks." And he made them, each line had a foreman, and then he was the boss for all of them. Mm. And I hunted with them. I played with his kids. We were the same age and stuff. But that guy didn't have the problem, but it had the appearance
that he picked the black lady over the white guy. That he picked the
black lady over the white guy. And so we got a cross burn in our yard. And when we called the police and the fire department, you know how many of them showed up?
Zero.
No, just the ones that were wearing a hood were there.
No.
Just the ones that
were burning it. I think that we need to hire who's best. I know when I got out of high school.
But how do you decide that?
Well, you have standards, and everybody has to fix the same standards. When I got out of high school, buddy said, "You can try to be a fireman?" And had no desire to be a fireman.
Right.
A lot of kids want to be a fireman. Their dads are firemen. Wichita Falls got a lot of kids that go to school. I've never, ever, ever, ever thought about being a fireman. Fireman and a dog trainer? No. You know, just like I don't.
Why are you looking at me funny?
And I don't want to be in the goose hunt business sometimes either. But I love this. It's my dream.
Yeah.
But I don't want my kid. I want my kids to do what they want to do. So, but anyways, back to firemen. But when I was there, a couple of my buddies tried out for a fireman. Well, they hired 10 people one year, and a buddy of mine was number 7 on the list. So should he have gotten the job as a fireman?
Yeah.
He didn't. You know why? Because they had to hire so many women, they had to hire so many minorities, they had to do this, they do that. And so he was 13. Well, that's not fair. You should hire your best people. That's my problem I have DEI. I don't care what color someone is, just hire who's best for the job.
I do have a problem with you're 100, I'm 105, he's 85, and he's black, and they pick him.
And that's not right.
And that's not right. No.
Now, if he's tied and you go back, I don't have a problem with that.
If they give him 10 points like they did a veteran, and you're at 100, I'm at 100, and now he's at 100.
Right.
So they actually hired somebody that made a 90 on the test.
That's not right.
But he's got 100.
That don't matter.
Because he's a veteran or whatever.
Different standards, and it shouldn't be that way. We should have one standard for everything. So my question back to this lady is, we're not going to know if this was a suicide. No. We're not going to know if
unless she left a letter.
Well, and we'll never know still.
That's right.
But it was too much.
Because they had time to take care of that.
And that's the problem with our government. They do too many stupid things like trying to cover this shit up. They should just come out and say, hey, listen, she's a full-fledged carpet muncher. She does this. She dresses up on holidays. She wears rainbow shit everywhere. A gay soldier, nobody cares.
No.
But when you cover everything up, then you're like, well, why are we covering all this shit up? Now, my next thing I'm going to get, we're onto this helicopter deal. I want to go to the Philadelphia plane crash.
Okay.
Okay.
I've heard that was just a MedEvac and they didn't have the patient strapped down. And when they took off, rolled them to the back and they couldn't regain.
Well, I haven't heard
what
that.
That does is it changed. So everything is balanced in that plane. That's what a loadmaster does on a C-130. They put the stuff in the right place. If he don't tie one down when that C-130 takes off and tilts back, and you have a tank roll to the back end, your history.
Yeah, right. But
that's what I had heard.
It's a medical jet, but there's not that much room for them things to move, like the medical helicopters. But you don't have much. 2 inches.
I had heard that they didn't strap down the patient when they took off. Everything slammed to the back, and they never could right the ship.
I saw the video, the first video that day. I was confused because Logan Pyatt messages me, and he goes, hey, did you see that video of that plane crash? He goes, in Philadelphia. I said, I saw that on Twitter a minute ago, or X. I said, I thought it was just another video of the D.C. deal. I didn't think nothing of it. It said Philadelphia plane crash. And I thought, some dumbass, that's in Washington, D.C., not Philly. I thought it was the same deal. Yeah. And he's like, no. And so then I started looking, and I saw a video, and it looked like a plane going down. Then I saw some video yesterday. Now, this is another thing with our country. Everything, there's nothing ever cut and dry. Shows the video, Philadelphia, and it shows something going to the ground and blows up, and you hear this guy say, Allah Akbar. And he's filming when this thing hits. What I saw the video, the second video, is not a fucking airplane. That's a missile. There's no doubt about it. You can see it, sucker, going down.
I haven't seen that.
The very first video I saw looks like a freaking airplane going down. Yeah. The other one, can you pull up on your deal and see if you can put?
Well, you got to realize if the Allah Akbar guy, he could overlay that just like you can overlay.
This came out real quick on like TikTok, and it may be fake.
It only takes 5 minutes. But, Andy, how long would it take you to doctor something?
Not long if I had. I mean, yeah.
But this is what's interesting about the whole deal.
You and me forever.
Oh, I wouldn't be able to know to do it. I would like to see the video if you could pull it up because it shows something fast like a missile. If that's the actual video. Now, I told Michelle we were talking about because he says Allah Akbar. I said that's like us saying Jesus Christ. I know for us Christians you don't think that way, but. Yeah. To Muslims to say Allah Akbar is the same thing.
It's an MF.
Yes, exactly. And it's just a word. I mean, I've said Jesus Christ before, and I've said the GD word. I'm not proud of that, but I've used it more than 3 times in my life probably last week. But so for him to say Allah Akbar might be just something he says. That thing blew up, Allah Akbar. I mean, I don't know. And then there's a video, the radio, and you hear somebody, you're messing with the wrong motherfucker. You can hear that I actually heard that on the audio.
I couldn't hear that.
I did hear that on
but my hearing is suspect at best.
But it's got to be real. I mean, I need subtitles for it.
Well, I got that tinnitus because they didn't issue us.
There you go. Your
pros.
But when you see this video, it does look like a missile. It's small and it flows and it blows up. Now, I would love for someone on the ground to come out. I know planes crash all the time, but you ought to be able to find something more than someone's driver's license next to it. But my thought is, someone saw that jet take off in Philadelphia, so it just disappeared.
What do you mean?
if it's a missile, they're saying now someone saw that Learjet with that Angel Wings take off.
Oh, it crashed.
Do you see what I'm saying? That it's kind of like the plane that goes into the Pentagon. I still don't think the Pentagon was hit by a plane. I've had numerous people reach out to me about that disagree with me. I have a hard time. But if it didn't go into it, where'd that plane go?
I was working on 9/11, and we could do a whole nother story on that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I definitely want to get into that.
Okay, this is a video that you're watching right there.
Okay.
Now you watch this thing. If it,
Very strange.
there.
What the fuck, bro? There's no chance.
Now, if you go real slow back, you can see the actual thing come down. That's not a freaking airplane because I watched this video. You got to go real slow though. You should just pulled your cursor back. Would have been easier.
It's gonna skip. It's going 3 seconds in advance, and it happened so fast.
Oh, you can. The one I saw shows a guy. It shows something come down. Looks like a freaking missile, and it also.
It's just an explosion. I think I need about 5 seconds.
Okay, I saw the one before that, but the guy says Allah Akbar, and you heard it too. But that's just like someone saying Jesus Christ or something. So I don't know that.
Right.
He's praising Allah for this stuff. And why would you take out with a missile a parking lot at a mall?
Why would you try to take down someone that's helping a kid? And that's what they were doing.
Okay, now look at this one. Now that could have been an airplane. You saw that video. Look at that plane. See?
Yeah.
That might be an airplane. I don't know for sure. But the other one does not look like a dang airplane. It looks like a missile. It's real fast and quick.
Well, I'm certain that the plane crashed.
Yes,
in
me too.
Philadelphia.
But someone said that there's now that planes in South America flying. So who knows? Now, again, we're back to a point in America where nobody trusts the CIA, nobody trusts the FBI, nobody trusts the media, nobody trusts the government.
Well, here, I mean, is that not the wreckage right there on that video right there?
Right.
So I mean, there's your
Let me see
part
if
of
that's
the plane
Let me see that then, if it is.
right there where my cursor is.
Show the one on the left too, though. I'm not saying that there's more to that. I'm just saying when I saw this deal with the Allah Akbar and the video I seen was a little bit. Now that one there looks like an airplane going down. That's big. That's not a missile going down.
No,
so it's got to be a
that's
plane. But that one right there looks like you cannot tell.
So, to give you an idea, when I was at Fort Hood, a buddy of mine was a instructor pilot, and he was teaching a kid how to fly a little Cessna 150 or 152, whatever it was, and they were going out, and he would go through all this stuff, make sure this is done, that's done, and on more than one occasion, he would turn the fuel line off after it cranked. And you're supposed to check all that, and the kid would miss it. And so, and he ended up losing his instructor license over this because he would test those kids. I mean, he was the same way I was when I was instructing someone in aviation. I'm going to throw you.
Trial by fire.
Yes, sir. You're going to learn all the bad things because that's the only way I know how to teach. You can do something right 1,000 times and never learn nothing.
Right.
You do something wrong one time, and boy, you have learned something.
Yeah.
Touch a cold stove, you don't learn nothing.
No. Right.
Let it be hot one time. See if you don't learn to check.
Right.
And so, same way with a loaded gun. It goes off. Remember the shotguns that were going off, and you were begging people.
Super Black Eagle 2.
Yeah. And so, you're begging them to check, and they don't check, and bam, it goes off. Hey, I told you. I'm up here. I'm the guy being shot at.
I told you, if you got a squib, check that motherfucker. So that next one's going to slam forward.
Yeah, and so anyway, he gets on the plane, and he takes and he flips the seat for his student. He doesn't lock it, and that's one thing you're supposed to check. Make sure your seat's locked. Well, it only moves maybe an inch, or if that. And so that kid goes take off, and it slides back, and instead of the kid using his feet, to hold himself in place, he pulls the yoke back.
Oh shit!
And this plane goes up, and Bill, knocks him off the thing and takes over, and they end up going under the bridge on the bypass on south of Clean Airport, under that bridge. And of course, there's cars coming and stuff, and he has to go under it, and he saves a plane and lands. And they pulled his instructor pilot license after that.
Teach that kid a valuable lesson.
Yeah.
Bet the kid checked the seat.
No, he shit in it, actually.
The next time.
Oh, the next time. Yeah. And so, but that happens, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, and I would do the same thing, you know. I mean, I didn't go out and tell pilots to do things, but when I saw a situation that could teach stuff, you know, we had long cords on our headsets, and I'd go back there and pull up the data block on the guys whose airspace we're going to violate and point it out to them. Hey, this plane's fixing to come. I'm going to teach a lesson. And they're like, no, you need to just go tell him. I said, I've told him 3 or 4 times, and he just ignores me. He's like, I'm not going to do that. I was fixing to take care of that right now. So I don't know if you're fixing to take care of it, but we're going to watch this. And so I waited till the last minute, and I go, if I don't do it now, we're going to have a bad habit. And I'd already gone to the sectors and said, this is what I'm going to do. And so I slapped the kid in the head and said, it's mine. He goes, what? I said, shut up. And I keyed the mic and turned the American to the left, and they started flashing conflict alert. And I descended him, and this other airplane was coming at us, and I had already had him stop below because I knew these two were at 33, and I had a 31 coming. I stopped him at 29 so I could descend to 31, get them clear, and then put the spacing back on them and give them the next sector arriving DFW. And so I did that. You know who got in trouble for that?
You?
I did. I caused an adverse situation, you know. I'm like, this kid's not going to do that. He's going to watch those speeds from now
Right.
on.
Right.
Did you see the I saw a TikTok or something. I'm not a TikToker, so it had to be on Insta or somewhere. Video of the air traffic controllers and pilots back and forth, the talking.
Oh, yeah.
It gets very unprofessional sometimes.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, I can see that.
But it's a high stress situation. I mean, lives are at stake.
We had a Delta jet, big weather in DFW, and had weather shut off everywhere, and this pilot gets loaded up, and Delta gets in Albuquerque and not supposed to take off, and he takes off. And so
He's drunk?
No.
Oh,
no.
he said loaded. I didn't know.
Yeah, he was loaded up.
Okay.
And off the tarmac and onto the
Fixing to take off.
yeah, taxiway, and they're telling him to get out of the way, and he ends up taking off. Whatever the confusion was, he ends up airborne, and now we've got 10 pounds of taters in a 5-pound sack. And so he gets up there, and he comes on to my frequency, and I told him to slow to 250 and turn right. It was like 60 degrees because I had a spot for him. I'd already made a spot, and I'm going to put him in line. And that son of a bitch keys up and starts going, well, I'm telling you something. We were held on the ground at Albuquerque for 35 minutes, and we did this, and we did that. And the whole time he's on this turn, and now he's overshot. There's no way I can get him into that gap because he keyed the mic and ran his mouth.
Right.
And now I don't have a place to put him. And he unkeys, and I told him, I said, let me tell you something. I can put you at Lubbock, and we can hold at Lubbock till about 11:30 when the skies get clear, and you can go direct DFW because we do it every night at midnight. You can go direct to the airport. You come off the airport, and you go direct to destination because that's how we run things on the mid shifts. And if you want to do that, just get your ass over there at Lubbock and hold until I can tell you otherwise. He goes, no, sir, I'm sorry. We'll go ahead and so I try to make another hole, and just as I get him to Wichita Falls for the descent, they go, we can't take any more, spin him. I'm like, no, you got to take this guy.
He's already ripped my ass.
No, we can't take any more. I'm like, no, you don't understand. And I was getting a check right at the time.
So is Fort Worth Center, do y'all run everything from Albuquerque? So is Albuquerque got a spot too?
So,
Or is it Phoenix or Vegas?
Fort Worth Center is like from El Paso to the Mississippi River and Tulsa to Temple. And it's different. I mean, there's corners cut.
So Houston doesn't run out of Fort Worth Center?
No, Houston. There's 20 facilities in the nation. Fort Worth always was either number 1 or number 2 or number 3 in levels of traffic.
Atlanta 1.
Volume. It was the 3 was Aurora Center, which is Chicago area. Atlanta, and us. And so
Chicago? That really surprises
Chicago
me.
was always number one.
I figured LA would be up there too.
No, they only have traffic going one way.
Just to LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're either coming.
You're going east all the time.
Yeah, you're leaving east and going west. You're landing west.
There's not much going to Honolulu out of LA.
No, and so, but
That makes sense.
those were the biggest three, and so they would offload when Kansas City would go. Oh, we got weather. You know where they'd come?
Dallas.
They'd come right over Dallas, and we'd eat airplanes all day long, and we didn't care. We would work them, and that's why our numbers were so high, because when somebody else cried uncle, we took their offload.
So do y'all work 8-hour shifts?
Yes and no. So when I worked there, we worked, our first day back was 4 p.m. to midnight. Our second day was 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Our third day was either an 8 to 4 or 7 to 3. Our fourth day was a 6 to 3 or 6 to 2 or 7 to 3.
Why'd y'all have a rotating like hours like that? I would think one
And
week
then
at the
our
same
last
time.
day was mid shift. So we'd get off at 2:30 and come back at 10:30. So we'd have an 8-hour break. And then we'd be off. So I would work that. I'd work Sunday because you got Sunday pay. You got 25% more to work a Sunday. So I worked from 4 p.m. to midnight on Sunday, and then come back Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then Thursday was my day shift. So I would get off Thursday morning at 6:30, and I wouldn't have to come back till Sunday at 4.
Oh, that's a good deal,
And
then.
so when my parents were sick, I would drive to Mississippi every week. I'd get off work at 6:30 and fight Dallas traffic, go over, 10, 12-hour drive to Mississippi, sleep, pick them up, carry them back to Jackson for their medical treatment, carry them back home, cook their meals, put them in little boxes, so they could take them out and microwave them and drive back home, go to work.
What did
But
that's a high stress job? Always been a high stress job.
they say that.
Was it a job to
tell
you just like
people-
anything else?
It's hours of boredom interrupted by moments of sheer panic.
But
Because you're either twiddling your thumbs or sucking a chair right up your keister.
I'm assuming now computers have taken a lot of the decision making away.
They don't
And
take
then
the decision making away, but
the monotonous stuff probably is taken away then.
when I first started, we didn't have any of that data blocks you saw and stuff. It was a raw radar beacon. And it was just raw radar. And the farther away from your radar site, the bigger it got. And if you asked them to ident, you had to push an IFF SIF button. And I don't know that there's many people left in this world that know how to do that stuff. But you would push it and it would ring. So the secondary. And those were set up. There were 3 bars and 3 bars. And so it added up to 7. So you had numbers 0 through 7. If it was off, there wouldn't be anything, and that'd be a 0. And then 7 would be all of them lit. And they would ring, and you could count those numbers and interpolate what they were squawking.
It's kind of crazy because Michelle, anytime one of the kids is on a plane somewhere, she tracks it all the time.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Oh, like we dropped Payne off the airport the other day. Oh, he's over Colorado. He's over Wyoming. I mean, she can look on her phone. It tracks how fast the plane's elevation and all that stuff. So it's had to get easier with air traffic controllers because they've got so much better data and technology now. But boy, it's still a human factor of keeping those people lined up. And I feel sorry for the controller. If he didn't do anything wrong the other day, that's a lot of guilt to live with for the rest of his life.
Well, he's going to live with it regardless, even if he played it perfectly.
Yeah.
No.
But he's always going to think, what could I have done?
Of course.
Should have told him to go left instead of go behind.
And that's
Head
where,
east.
That's where they get in trouble, because the NTSB doesn't talk to them until the next day. So they have got an eternity to play. And they do. I'm telling you, I've been involved in them, and you play it in your head. What could I have done? I told the guy, that guy can't be at 41 wrong, and I go and descend him. And he gets on the frequency, and the controller who I just told's got 2 other airplanes at that altitude, and I tell him, don't climb him. Learjet. Oh, they all want 41. This guy is a Learjet pilot, sitting next to me as a controller. He goes, I'm giving him 41. I'm like, well, you better be careful, because you got 2 guys coming at him. Well, he's going down this way. I said, yeah, but you're going to have to think ahead. You're running sequencing in the DFW. You're going to have to blend them. You're going to turn those guys to the south. And then when you turn them back north, they're going to be together. And sure enough, they did it. And, I'm like, what could I have done, to help this kid understand that was not a good idea?
What would you work in the day the Delta crashed at DFW?
Yes. Yeah. I was working the day shift and he crashed and I came in on the mid shift. I got in trouble for that too, because his
that was wind shear though, right?
His data block was sitting out there and back then we didn't have all this fancy computer stuff. We had we called them strips, so it was some of them were handwritten, some of them were typed out. And this was typed out. And it had his call sign, his type, airspeed, and his route of flight. And the controller had it cocked out like there was something he was got to, because we had, they would just sit in the rack like this, and then if there was something you needed to address, you would kick it out as a reminder, a light bulb thing. And so it was cocked out. So I come in to work the mid, and I see it. And, when I wake up, all this stuff is going on with the Delta, and I take the strip and I go, you don't have to worry about him. He's not going anywhere.
You got in trouble for that?
Oh, yeah.
A little insensitive.
Yeah, I had, my whole life was, I say half of my life was perfectly planned.
But
and the other half, not so much.
But that was wind shear, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's what I was thinking. It's thunderstorm.
So
you could still see that tank up until just recently where that wing hit it.
people don't know it, but that was Delta's lead pilot. He was their most experienced pilot.
I'll be damned.
Sitting, he was in the left seat, but he was letting his co-pilot fly that plane in. And they see the thunderstorm. Now, this is in August. We don't have weather in August.
Hot's the weather.
And so you got to realize thunderstorms, and I went through weather school for, and so I understand all this. But it doesn't take very long for a thunderstorm that has the right makings, and this, just to go boom. And that's exactly what happened. It went boom right over, 3 miles away from the airport or a half mile away from the airport. But that plane went into it. And the pilot, the lead pilot told that kid that was flying, said, be ready because it's going to push you around and you got to react to it.
It was a microburst.
A microburst.
Blew it down. Yep.
All right. And so when you get into that microburst, this is the center and it's blowing out in all directions. So if you're coming right at it, you're getting a headwind of, 500-600 mile an hour.
Right.
I mean, possibly, but you don't know. And so you're fighting that headwind, and then you get underneath it, and you've got zero lift on that plane.
Right.
You're fighting. There's when you're going into that microburst, there's no way you can put that plane on the ground. Because you're fighting it, and there's so much lift created. So it's pushing that plane up, and he's nose down trying to get it down, because he actually hit on the other side of 114, hit 114 and killed that guy I think it was a vet, and then veered off and hit that
water tank. You still had a dent in it up to, we landed.
That's the only thing that saved the people on board.
Was hitting that water
tower because it ripped the wing off and it would have exploded, but the water, and there was enough of it in that water, and they had just filled it because that was, I believe it was UPS's water tower. They had to have it for their facility. And so when it hit it, all that water gushed on it and kind of put the flame.
They said the water was neck deep. Firefighters were neck deep water with jet fuel on fire.
Yeah.
Really?
It was a fucked up mess. A buddy of mine was, they had leased some land on the other side, and they were working cattle over there when it happened. I got to pee too. We got to take a break.
Okay.
So, anyways, the Delta plane crashes.
Yeah.
And but that was a wind shear deal. They said, or a microburst pushed it down, and
so the wind is coming down, and there's no way you can descend. And then all of a sudden you get into zero wind for that split second, and you're like, oh.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you get a tailwind, and it takes away all your lift. So wings are developed, and I don't know if you know this, but it's just like this decoy here. So the top of the wing is rounded, and the bottom is flat. So the air starts in the same place, and this has to travel X number of feet more than this does.
Right.
And so it creates a lift. And so, and you do that by going forward. So when that plane is on final, he's probably doing, 200 miles an hour or whatever they are. That microburst is producing more wind than his speed. So it takes away all his lift.
Oh, I got you. So you just crater.
Yeah. And the problem is that when that happens, you really need to gain airspeed. And he's thinking, I'm a quarter mile from the airport. I need to be slowing down.
Right.
And
He actually need to be speeding up.
Yeah. And by the time they figure that out and increase it, which is what causes your fire, because now you're putting every bit of fuel you can into that engine. And had he been thinking about it when he was back here, he wouldn't have been fine. He should have gone around, 100%. He should have gone around. I did that, remember when I went to Vegas with y'all? I flew out there on that Southwest jet, and they had that flood at the airport, and the plane couldn't land. It was in 2008.
Shit, I can't remember that far back, but okay. Well,
Anyway, that plane did the same thing. I
do remember that. Okay, I remember what you're talking about. Yes.
One of them wrecked, and we were in the Southwest, and
I'd hate to fly with ski.
this is not going to be a pleasant thing, but because it's going to go back to that DEI stuff. When I got on that plane at Love Field, they said, "Welcome to Southwest Airlines. You're the chosen few. We have an all-female,
oh, perfect.
crew." And I'm like, let me off this son of a bitch. And it's like, no, we're going. And so, and then we get in this, and the microburst hit, with all that rain shower. And she's still trying to put that plane on the ground. I'm sitting in that plane go around, go fucking around, go around. Come on, go around, go around. And the guy in front, we were tossing.
Yeah.
At one time, we were almost on our side where I could see the runway.
God.
And I'm like, oh, we're dead. We're dead. And the guy in front of me craps his pants. Literally craps. And it stunk. We were all throwing up just from the smell. And I don't know if she actually touched the wing on the runway or not, but it was that
felt it.
It felt it. We scraped something. And then we went right down the runway, and I promise you, she was trying to put it on the ground the whole time and couldn't. And finally, we run out of airport, not just runway, we ran out of airport, and she climbs up and goes around, and it was 45 minutes before we got to land.
Ooh, jeez.
Because they had to clean everything up, and,
Right.
the runway's flooded.
Right.
If she'd have put it on the ground, it would have been even worse than what we did. And, of course, they made her a hero because she saved that
the day.
plane. But, if she had decided to go around when she should have,
Right.
and that's a lot of those accidents that I see are made by, I can handle this, because
Right.
we're taught to handle this. You
Right.
know, hey, it's a bad situation, work it out.
Figure it out.
And so in your mind, you're sitting there going, I got to put this plane on the ground. That's
Right.
what I'm here for. And then instead of going up, let's go around. Because I don't want to be the guy who went around and everybody else landed,
Right. And I'm sure they got like an on-flight or on-time, whatever bonus or whatever.
There's money in it. I've had plenty of incidents where I had to write pilots up because that's what they're thinking. I'm saving the company money. And Delta was the worst because if you save Delta money, you got a bonus.
Right.
And so that's incentive not to be safe.
Right.
It's incentive to get there quickest.
We landed in Vegas one time, and it was a really shitty landing, real shitty landing. I'm like, bad landing. one of the roughest landings ever. I was like, God, I'm terrible. I'm glad we're not. That same plane took off from Vegas, went to San Diego, and they crash landed that son of a bitch and went through the fence and on the highway and all kinds of shit there.
Yeah.
And it was the same pilot, the same crew.
Was
and
it the plane? Something wrong with the plane?
I think it's fucking pilot. What it was, but I don't know for sure. But we got off, and I was like, God Almighty! And we're in the room, we're checking in. You know, we go eat first, like we always do. And we come back and turn the news on, turn the TV on for some reason. And Michelle's like, "I just had a plane crash, and a Southwest plane crashed in San Diego." I said, "No shit," and I looked it up. And I was like, "That's the same fucking plane we were on." But it was a rough landing. I mean, rough landing.
So I've kind of got like this notion in my head. Maybe I've seen too many movies, but like, if we start to crash, what are the odds of me surviving if I'm on the plane and the pilot has time?
Time to what?
Like, are we going to land this thing in a field? Like, if it's all open?
Oh, you're talking about like a crash. You're talking about like something happens, they have to land on a highway or something, or or a field,
or a field or something.
I've seen big ass airplanes that we're flying around in. I don't think I really want to ride one of them and land in a cornfield.
Well, I don't either.
A little single engine.
I just want to know what my odds are really like, because you're like, there's a lot of open
if there's an
space down
interstate,
there.
you got a chance.
Your odds of getting on a plane and getting there safely are greater than any other transportation in the world.
Yeah,
By a long,
the
long
most
way.
dangerous part of an airplane is driving to the airport.
Yeah. And so we all agree on that.
Yeah.
But the thing that will, that they don't tell you is the number of personnel on board involved in each accident, survivors versus fatality. Okay. And then if you're involved in one, your numbers are not good.
If you survive a plane crash, you're a pretty fortunate person.
Yes, sir.
I mean,
absolutely.
Now, if you're in a single engine Cessna or something, you can put them down a lot of places.
Yeah.
If you've got a capable pilot, you can land them a lot of places. You can't land a 737 somewhere very many places. I mean, the interstates are set up and were designed and built to use a strategic air command.
They just
to
put a
B-52s.
guy in jail because that's what you're trained, and he landed it on the runway and killed somebody in the car, and he went to jail for murder.
But
Secondary, what is it?
it's just a
Manslaughter.
bad
or whatever?
accident.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
but he
normal
landed the
walking, but-
plane on the
Highway.
interstate, on the highway or whatever, and they said he wasn't authorized to do that.
Well, I'm telling you right now,
convicted him.
if I'm an American Airlines flight and we have something goes on and they land that some bitch on the middle of fucking Houston, in the middle of the interstate, I'm happy as hell he done that.
Yeah.
I don't care. But you're not landing one of those planes.
But how many times do you see a guy driving in a car going, he's doing something wrong. He's
Yeah.
got to move. Hell
Right.
no, I'm in the ditch.
Yeah.
You
Right,
know,
right.
I'm getting out of your way. Do whatever you got to do. I'm going to survive in that ditch
Yeah.
and worry about getting a wrecker out here to pull me out.
Yeah.
Before I
Let you
sit
take me
here and
head
go,
on. Yeah.
it's your
You were in the
fault
wrong
I'm
lane.
dead. Yeah.
Right.
It's
Right.
your fault I'm dead.
Yeah.
Well, it's your fault I'm in the ditch.
Right.
But I'm gonna live to kick your ass later.
Common sense again.
But they're not.
Common sense again. Live to
Yeah.
fight another day.
Those planes, if they can, I mean, you're going to run out of runway for a big airplane. That's the problem with you landing a big jet landing it somewhere in a crash landing. Little airplanes, they land a lot of those. I mean,
Yeah.
but most all plane wrecks
if
are
that
pilot
RJ
error.
had been like a 747 or the one that creates the most turbulence is like a 757. They were the world's worst at it, and we actually, even though they're not a heavy jet, we treat them as a heavy. So they get 5 mile separation on landing and take off. Because they create so much vortices and disturbed air.
So if it would have been a 777, the big Dreamliner, whatever it is, 787, whatever they are now, that helicopter would hit it. It might not have took it down all the way, would it have?
Oh yeah, that
the
plane probably
explosion.
would have actually sucked that helicopter into it.
Right.
That being that close, because there's so much disturbed.
Would
air.
it have been an explosion at once too?
Oh,
Or-
yeah,
so
just like you saw.
it would have been. So there's none of the
when,
planes
when
out there.
two
where-
airplanes hit.
There's
it
nothing
doesn't matter
good.
what they are. Yeah, they're going to go boom.
Yeah.
Because they're nothing but a rubber balloon full of
Gas.
full of bad stuff. To
This
go boom.
has been a very educational podcast.
No, I want to go into 9/11 real quick.
Okay.
What was it with that day that all that happened? I mean, was it just a shit show of trying to get everybody on the ground?
So it was a Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
And so we're working departures west out of DFW. I worked the west side. I always worked 4-6's ranch and stuff, and so we're taking all the heavy jets westbound, and I'm working Turkey High, which has got 3 DFW departure routes. Anything going to the West Coast, anything going west at all, except for Amarillo, Colorado, Seattle, anything. And that's the big push of the day, is that morning push, because everybody's going to be there at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. And that was, to be honest with you, that was and we trained, those pilots got trained out of Meacham Airfield.
I did not know that.
Yeah, every one of them. And I worked one of them on an emergency, and I guess I should have let him crash, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And they tried to infiltrate Fort Worth Center, because at the time, Fort Worth Center was going to be, it was designed.
Wait, you mean the terrorists or the American Airlines pilots?
The terrorists.
Oh.
The terrorists.
Right by
Oh,
Matt's
shit.
hangar.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I thought you
Yeah.
meant the American Airlines.
Yeah, Matt knew them. No, the
terrorists.
The terrorists.
Oh, Jesus.
Were trained at Fort Worth out of Meacham. Yeah, and so and they were. And guess who paid for it? Guess who paid for their training?
Us.
I'll give you the United States
U.S.
government.
aid, probably.
Yep, the United States government paid for them, and
Why?
I'm probably going to go
Under-
to jail for this. 'Cause
Why?
it's
Why would
probably
they
some
pay
kind-
for them?
It was under some of their programs to train the Middle Easterns, bring them to the U.S. and train them.
Donald Trump.
So they were here illegally. They came through Canada because of Canada's border situation. They landed in Canada and then filtrated in, and some of them actually tried to come in to our center, because if the world went to shit, Fort Worth Center had an extra layer underground. We were supposedly it was built in the 60s, and it was supposed to be able to take a ground zero nuclear attack and survive. And so and now they don't even worry about that stuff.
Just think the guy with the cheapest bid, though, got that job. So I don't know if I
he
can
did.
trust that.
He did, yeah. Just like a rocket ship, baby.
Yep.
So, do you hear any of the stuff that's going on in New York, like as it's happening, or you just hear, like, how's it work?
So I was on the sector, and we're working westbounds, and my boss, who was a female, and
I'm sure she was qualified.
I will tell you this, she was the best supervisor I ever had, bar none. And I've had some good ones, and I've probably had the worst ones. There's one that's buried in Fort Worth that every time I go there and get a chance, I piss on the grave. Okay, so I hate him. There's only 3
Hate him
people in the
still.
world that I hate, and he was one of them. And so, but anyway, she's, I don't know how she got the job, but I'm damn sure glad she did, because she was a damn good supervisor. She stuck up for her people. She went by the rules. I never saw her, if you screwed up, she didn't hide nothing, But if there was a way to help you, she went out of her way to help you. And so that's the epitome of supervision.
Yeah.
And so anyway, she taps me and says, "There's something going on. I'm not sure what it is, but we've got an order to put everybody on the ground."
That don't happen ever.
And I'm like, "What?"
Everybody.
And I mean, I got planes, the entire DFW airport emptied into my airspace.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I ain't got time to play this game. And she's like, "It's not a game. Put them on the ground." So I am telling them, I called Lubbock Approach and said, "Y'all better tighten up." I said, "Every plane we got's coming into your airspace and it's going to land at Lubbock." Because I don't have, I tried to take some to Midland. Midland didn't have room for them. And they're getting their own departures, Anything that went over El Paso, went over Midland, Abilene, and Midland. Anything else.
So we're stopping all flights everywhere in the country to the nearest big airport, right?
Yep.
or the nearest airport, period.
Yep.
Anything that'll take this plane.
Anything that can handle a plane is going to land there. And we diverted 1 or 2 up to Amarillo. But everything else I've got lined up and spread out, because I'm running 3 routes west, and now I got to put 1 route into Lubbock, and normally we have a couple hundred miles to do that. I've got 57 miles to put everybody in line and land them at Lubbock.
So everybody, nothing went to Wichita Falls or Abilene. All to Lubbock.
Yeah. Well, some of them did, but like I said, the ones that went to Wichita Falls is east of us. Okay, it's east. It's technically east, and that's an arrival sector.
Right.
Okay, so that's coming into DFW. The going out is between Abilene and Wichita Falls.
Right, because I watch my flight or wherever they
Right.
go. So is everybody coming into DFW? Or are you just landing them at the interstate airports too?
No, they're going straight to DFW.
Even if they're over Kansas, they let them come all the way to Dallas.
No, they land at the nearest airport. If they're already
In your
over
sector.
Wichita Falls, they're going. Some of them, so like low altitude. So I'm working flight level 240 to infinity, and so anything in that airspace is going into Lubbock in my airspace. Anything below it, they're turning to Wichita Falls, they're turning to Abilene, whatever it is. And so I'm lining them up, and I get this business jet, and I always wondered whether it was Matt or not, but I know it wasn't later. So this guy gets up, and he's at like 39,000 feet, and he's going to Vegas. And I said, "Sir, we've got a problem, and I need you to pull your chart. You're going to be landing at Lubbock. Stand by for instructions." And he goes, "My boss says we're going to Vegas." I said, "I know you were going to Vegas, but we have a problem. I'm not sure what it is. I've just been instructed."
National security, set your ass on the ground.
But you probably don't even know it's a national security issue.
Oh, I have no idea what
You
it
just
is.
know
Yeah.
the order is.
Because I'm working a sector and that's it. I have no idea. My boss told me to put everybody on the ground, and I'm going to put everybody on the ground. And so he's arguing with me, and I'm lining everybody else up. And, it's not just me and him getting to talk like we are.
Right, you're talking
I've
to
got
10 other
everybody
people.
else, and he's talking as much as you and I are right now.
Yeah.
Telling me he ain't doing it and stuff. And I turn around, and I tell him, my supervisor, I said, "Helen, he's not listening. He says he insists on going to Vegas." And she goes, "Those are the ones we're looking for." And I'm like, I don't know what's good, because I have no idea. And she's told me some stuff, but so I'm like, well, let me tell you. And I told the guy, she goes, "There's F-18s that, I can't think of the name of the base.
Cannon and Clovis?
Cannon in Clovis. Yeah, thank you." So she said, "Launch them if you need them. They're available. They're on standby."
I bet you were like, fuck.
And so I'm like, "Oh, fuck." And I tell this guy, I said, "You don't understand the severity of this. Your next answer will tell me what I've got to do." I said, "You need to go to Lubbock, and I need you to acknowledge you're going to take a vector to Lubbock." He goes, "Nope, my boss says we're going to Vegas."
That's the wrong answer.
Why the fuck
And I
would you
told him
argue
that.
with? That's stupid.
And I told him, I said, "That's the wrong answer. Godspeed."
Godspeed.
And I hit the button. I said, "Cannon Air Force Base, I need 2. He goes, "2 what?" I said, "2 F-18s, and I need them in a hurry." And within a minute, they were airborne and on my frequency and says, "Where's the bogey?" Because they were briefed. See,
bogey.
they were
It's a fucking, yeah.
they were briefed on
Any-
the ground already why they're doing this. I
Any
have
plane,
no idea.
any plane in the air is a threat to national security
right.
at this point.
Anybody that's arguing,
Yeah,
they don't know if
because
it's Muhammad Abdul with the fucking.
they're sitting there on the ground and they've seen the videos and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm working the sector and I have no idea. And so they get on the frequency and I vector them. And of course, I still have to maintain separation. And they're at, 38,000 feet with this guy. And then they say, "Tally ho, we've got it." And now they can, they lose separation or whatever, and it starts flashing. And this guy goes, "Center, we've changed our mind. We'll go ahead and land. We'll take that vector to Lubbock." I said, "No, sir, you're going to follow them."
Yeah.
And every time I talked to him after that, it was Godspeed.
Godspeed.
And so, and then
Where'd they land him at?
Helen relieves me and says, "You're off the sector." I said, "What did I do wrong?" She goes, "You're off the sector." And our union rep at the time, or was one of the union rep, comes in and relieves me. And she says, "You're the senior union rep in the building," because all our other reps were down in New Orleans at a convention. And I don't go to those things. So I was, easily the easiest one to say, I'll stay here and be in charge, whatever they need. And so they said, you got to go and take care of stuff and do paperwork.
Oh,
'Cause
perfect.
Every time you have something like that, you got to do paperwork. And they want you to write it down while it's fresh in your mind and before you can think of all these bad scenarios like we talked about. You know,
Right.
all the things I could have done or should have done or,
Yeah.
you know, you write this down. And then when you go back later, you read that and you go by that. No matter what you think 3 days later,
You go by
this
what you
is
wrote.
what you go by.
Yeah.
Because your mind is playing tricks on you. And so that's why they tell you to do that. And so, you know, I get off the sector and they're taking him. And the only place they had to take him to a non-aviation civilian passenger facility. And God bless Ross Perot. There's only one in Texas, and that's Alliance Airport. Now realize it's 120 degrees out that day.
Yeah.
I think it was only
It was hot.
117 or whatever. It was hot. They landed them at that facility, and now the only people that can relieve those pilots are
Military personnel?
Yes, Marshal.
Yeah, the U.S. Marshal Service that are air marshals. So I can't remember all this stuff because it's been so long. But anyway, they hold them, put them at front leaning rest position, you know, on your face, on your ground, on that tarmac.
Oh, shit.
And they hold them there for several hours. I was told almost 4 hours before they could get an air marshal.
Where were they at on the ground at?
Alliance.
At Alliance is where they landed them at?
landed them at Alliance.
So he drove them all the way back from Lubbock, all the way there to land. Woof. I bet that old pilot was pissed off at his owner.
It's a short flight when you're going direct because you
Yeah.
have priority.
Right.
You know, those F-18s are following them.
Sir, we will.
Actually, there's one to the left side and one underneath him. And the one underneath him is the one that's going to get you.
I got a historic question then since 9/11. So by that, I guess it was a pretty boring day work for the last 3 days after that.
Probably 3 weeks.
3 weeks, nothing going on at all.
Nothing at all.
Did you work?
We did have one guy leave some airport northeast of Fort Worth because they said it was a 24-hour delay, and he took off because he was a country boy and said, by God, I'm going.
Right.
And he got airborne, and
F-18s.
F-18s went over there and told him he needed to land.
I bet he was I bet that guy was like,
So they told me afterward, because I had to go for a couple of discussions over it, that those guys were filing a lawsuit, the pilots and the passengers and stuff, and they actually named the controller on it, but because they had third-degree burns from laying on that tarmac for so long.
What was you working the day Payne Stewart's plane crashed? Do you remember the golfer?
I remember that.
the Ghost Flighter
but I wasn't.
It depressurized and they
Yeah.
flew till they ran out of deal, and then they crashed.
Yeah, they had at Wichita Falls. You know, they have the what is it? The NATO.
Yeah, the inject deal, or whatever it's called now.
Yeah, inject. It used to be. I couldn't remember what it was called, but anyway, they had we worked those guys in the training areas, and he came out and he's like, "Oh, I can't handle the plane. We're ejecting." He ejects, and that plane flies all the way to New England.
ooh,
Before it actually ran out of fuel into the ocean, flying itself, a T-38. Nobody in it, and he couldn't handle it, and he ejects, and the plane flies on. So the problem was pilot error.
right. Yeah.
You know, I used to watch them guys train when I was in college. I worked at the base, and they used to do their training where they did the ejector seat deals. I used to watch them do that shit. I thought that'd be a fun little fucking ride. Try that one time.
No, it's not.
They say it's pretty tough on you.
Yeah.
When the terrorists take over the plane, I mean, do the air traffic controllers, when did they know that this was a hijacked aircraft?
When the pilot tells him if he gets a chance.
But I mean, like specifically with 9/11, did they know? Did the pilots come on and say, "Hey, we have an incident on board"?
Some of them did.
I think the Pennsylvania crash did, but I don't think the ones that hit the Trade Center did.
It happened too fast.
Yeah. So we had controllers on board every one of those planes. They were flying the cockpit. And prior to 9/11, we were required to fly the cockpit at least twice a year
Really?
for familiarization. Now, most of the guys did it for other reasons, but I only took 2 in my entire career. Mm-hmm. I used to lie my way out of them. I did not want to fly. Never did because of things that happened that, I promise you, if I hadn't been on that plane, everything would have went fine for Southwest Airlines into Las Vegas. I know it was my fault.
90% of all flight crashes are pilot error, though. It's not mechanical. They do so much backups.
It's not necessarily an error, but they make a wrong decision because just like, the Delta landing, if the right decision was to go around, but he's like, man, I'm not going around. I can fly this. I'm a pilot. I've got more hours than anybody else that works for Delta. I can do this.
And I'm assuming they killed the pilots right away.
Yeah, they slashed their throats with box cutters.
Yeah. Well, they had all kinds of stuff. But why would you let them in the door?
Yeah, I don't understand that either. You know what's crazy?
I've been there. They're not busting that door,
Right?
Unless it's unlocked. Or,
most of the times, though, or not back before 9/11, I flew many times when the cockpit door was open.
Yeah.
Went there and you take a piss and you can look out the front deal.
Yep.
I was on a flight to Jamaica one time with a bunch of little girls wearing bikinis and shit on a plane. And I swear to God, one of them ended up in the damn pilots. I think she got to fly the plane a little bit over the Caribbean Ocean. I don't know that for sure, but I think really looking back, I think she got to sit in the damn deal and fly it all.
Might have.
She goes, I just can't believe they
the
picked
pilot
me.
was busy doing something else.
Well, if you'd had a T-shirt on over them titties, you probably wouldn't have got that chance.
He's probably got a night or two in Jamaica and wants to make it memorable.
Yeah. So,
but that was not that uncommon in the 80s for the doors to be open on a plane. It's a lot different. There is nothing bigger pain in the ass than going through fucking airport. I'm telling you right now.
And it's even worse now. I have not been through since 9/11. I have not stepped on a plane since.
Well, and I know even now, like if you see the pilot come out to take a piss, they'll take that little drink cart and they put up a barricade just for that brief moment that the pilot's going to be in and out. A stewardess will stand there with that drink cart and that would be the perfect time if you're going to do it.
I don't know how the RJs are done. I know the ones that they hijacked were big jets.
Yeah.
Full of fuel.
So
when they blew up the 9/11 buildings remotely, they could act like it was a plane.
The mistake they made was they didn't realize there were 4 time zones. And I know that's come out, but we knew that from the beginning. So some of those planes, Fort Worth Center was targeted for one of those planes. Yeah.
I wonder where all they were going to try to hit that day.
So, and as a matter of fact, the guys who were supposed to target us were landed in Kansas City. And they jumped a train and were headed to Mexico, and they were picked up in Texas.
Sears Tower in Chicago was supposed to be
They were just going to hit big buildings?
Well, no, not just big, but that was Sears Tower was one of them.
That's an hour later.
Phoenix, Arizona is a
2
big
hours
bank
later.
building. They're supposed to hit the big building in Los Angeles and San Francisco, and I think somewhere in Seattle.
Yeah.
And if they'd have known that we had 4 time zones, it would have all just happened.
Well, it's not like we snuck up and just decided that morning we were going to change our time zone.
Well, but
I know that.
No, and it wouldn't have worked because
they would have had to have done.
They were set like the West Coast or the East Coast traffic leaves in time to get to L.A. at 8 a.m.
Right.
And then
I
Fort
got
Worth
you.
leaves in time to get to L.A. at our time.
Right.
And so
It's a lot of the
ours
same
were
planes.
just getting airborne when theirs were in the air already.
Crashing.
It was occurring. Yeah.
And what's bad is it would have been just like Pennsylvania. They would have had to shoot them planes down. Is what they would have had to do.
So,
before you take a risk of someone flying into
the
it.
one that went into the and I will tell you this, I can see the Secret Service putting my ass in jail for this. Because after 9/11, Bush, the dumbass Bush, there was a dumb Bush and a dumbass Bush. And so I didn't like any of them. But anyway, the dumbass Bush starts the Homeland Security program, and it's still in effect now. And they put air traffic control under Homeland Security, and they couldn't pass our security clearances. Nobody that they
really?
put in charge. And so when they would come ask us, that's all as, union reps, we tell them to do that. What's your security clearance? I can't talk to you.
And none of them could pass FAA
And
security
none of them
clearance.
could pass our security clearances. And so when 9/11 occurred, they brought in the Air Force, and the Air Force took over operations because they were, flying the caps and stuff. And so we still had to man our sectors. We still sit there and watch the blank scope, and we're like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And they're like, because somebody might come up. I said, we don't even have raw radar anymore. I said, back when I was working in the 70s and 80s, we had raw radar, and I used to help, secure the border. I used to help with tracking the bad guys, that would turn the transponders off. And we don't have that. We have no way of
No.
we don't even have a switch that, we had certain radars that we could turn on to see raw radar. And you can't even do that now. It's all computer generated.
What's I guess you've had Air Force One come through before.
Yes.
How far apart do you have to keep people from that plane?
5 miles.
5 miles is the deal on it. My last little thing before we get out of here.
Hang on. I'll tell you one that's good for you.
Okay.
So we remember when they went down to the Falklands and did
Yes.
okay. So
1983.
yeah, I'm working the sector. It's midnight shift and I'm on. And
Andy probably doesn't know what the Falklands even is.
oh,
Do you?
No.
the Grenada,
Argentina. You talking Grenada or Falklands?
yeah, the Grenada, Falklands. It's all in the same area. So but it was in '83 when they
Was it Argentina that took over the Falklands? It was their mother country, and it's under British colonial rule. And British actually sent a frigate down there and attacked them. They had a little skirmish for about 3 days.
And so it was the first time that the B-1 and B-2s were used. We've had them before then, but they were top secret. And so they're headed down there, and we got to notice these guys are coming through. You keep everybody 10 miles away from them.
Nobody wanted nobody to see them.
Regardless of altitude. So my
That's
buddy,
tough.
the black guy I told you about that I love to death, he's working the sector, and they're launching planes, and they're all going to Chicago on the mid shift and up, in the Midwest. They're everything. I mean, and that's the way it was. You'd be on one sector and twiddling your thumbs, and the next guy, working sector next to you has got 150 airplanes in it, and they're just screaming at him. And so he's working them, and he there's no way he can keep 5 miles or 10 miles from these guys. And he's just stopping them under altitude. And these guys are going, what the hell is that? Have you seen that? And they're all talking to each other. The box haulers are flying up into Memphis, and they're all looking at these guys. And I'm hollering at him, hey, keep them away. He goes, no, it's standard separation or 10 miles. No, it's 10 miles
10 miles.
regardless of altitude. Like, oh, I done messed up. And we were concerned that cause they went down there and
off.
bombed everything and took over. And it was a 2-day war or whatever.
It was quick.
Yeah. And so it took us a day to get down there. And then the next day it was over.
It's 10 miles regardless. Oh, shit.
So, and they have it was like, when you're looking up and you can see that and there's no moon.
Yeah.
It looks like the Batman
Flying through.
Somebody went home, damn, darling, let me tell you, we got some weird shit. So my last thing is Ronald Reagan
Yeah. Love him. to
fired every controller.
Yep.
Is that when you started?
Yep. I was working the VFR tower for petroleum helicopters in
So you were working in the private sector as an air traffic controller.
Right.
Okay.
I had actually was running Sabine Pass, and they had just moved me to Cameron, Louisiana. Remember them old boys that used to come up from Cameron and hunt with us?
No, I've got a lot.
Bring their kids from the school. It used to be a school-sponsored program.
I'm getting old. I don't remember that. But I've had a lot of coon asses
But
here.
I knew them boys. They used to come up.
Okay.
Used to let me take them out and hunt with them. So anyway, the hurricane wiped Camille out, but or wiped Cameron out. They had one pipe sticking up down there when I went down there after the hurricane. And so anyway, they sent me over there, and there was a pogie plant. I don't know if you know what that is, Menhaden. They're the nastiest smell. If you think opening a can of sardines is bad,
Pogie
you
plant's
have
worse.
no idea than what a pogie plant smells like. And you always got a south wind, even when the wind's blowing from the north. You got a south wind. And so that place stunk. I'm like, boss. So that's when they had an agreement to get rid of to keep the union out. And so I got bumped out of my tower job and sent to the night shift at Cameron. And so I'm like, I ain't doing this. And then Reagan did that, and that was like August 3rd when they went out. And they called me the next day, called me while I was at work down there, said, would you be willing to come to work? And to be honest with you, that's why I hadn't worked for the FAA prior to that. When I got out, I took the test, and I got out of the service in 79, and I was 60 days prior you could test. And so I tested, and I maxed their test and everything. And of course I worked with Fort Worth and Houston both, because Fort Hood is right on the boundary between the two. Mm-hmm. And so the boss up in Fort Worth said, I want you, Ski. You're going to come work for us. I'm like, hell yeah. But I never got hired because of the
affirmative action?
Affirmative action stuff kept me out because they were hiring other people. And then Reagan put a freeze on hiring, and who was
Carter.
Carter put a freeze on hiring his last year in 79, and I couldn't get hired on. And then when Reagan came in, and I guess in 81, he told them, you're going to straighten up and fly right, and we're going to do this my way. And they said, no, we're going on strike. And he fired everybody. And they called me and said, you willing to go to Fort Worth? I said, I just bought a house in Houston, but yeah, I'll go to Fort Worth. And so August 23rd, I was the first one through the gate at Fort Worth Center.
Where's Fort Worth Center located at?
Okay, so you know where the old Greater Southwest Airport is? American Airlines complex?
At Meacham?
No, 183 and 360.
I do. I've seen American Airlines headquarters right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're right next door.
I saw it because it's got a sign that says Fort
We've
Worth
got-
Center, don't
yeah.
it? Okay.
We've got
I'd
10
seen it
acres
before,
there.
but I couldn't remember where it was.
And when 9/11 happened, American Airlines went out there and plowed like 50 feet. We had to have a kill zone around our fence, and they went and knocked all the trees and plowed it all up so that we would have our kill zone that was required.
Before we get off here, I just saw breaking news mingo. I thought it was kind of interesting. Donald Trump just told Ukraine all their raw materials belong to the government of the United States of America to pay us back, to pay us for all the money we've spent on there.
Yeah.
They said like there's
There's
hundreds of billions of dollars.
$100 billion worth missing. That
Zelensky's like, I never saw
said,
it.
I never saw
Yeah,
it.
and
Why are you doing
that
this?
USA aid came out today. The Clinton Foundation got $174 million to build something in Haiti that's never been built. And Tony told me today, or was it you told me about the radio station in Afghanistan? They spent $45 million to build a radio station, a gas station in Afghanistan that doesn't even have gas there and pumps.
Yeah.
Well, I saw this last night. Doge uncovered that the U.S. Treasury found analysis of U.S. Treasury payments. The Pentagon spends $600 million a year on sushi.
Yes.
The IRS building spends $230,000 a month on Starbucks cinnamon roast K-cup coffee that goes in the Keurigs.
First, we're going to drink some Folgers.
$1,280 per little disposable plastic cup to be used to drink the coffee. $1,200 per cup.
Per cup, yeah.
That you're going to drink it out of.
Me and Srecky talked about that last
all
night.
for the IRS headquarters, where 92% of the employees are still working from home.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're still spending we're spending all that on coffee.
People on both sides of the aisle, the politicians may not like it, but the people that vote Democrat, when they find out more and more of this stuff, are going to appreciate this stuff because people are tired of it.
Yeah.
Spend some money back on us. Take away, we shouldn't have to pay income taxes.
I mean, I always go back to this just because I'm on school board and I know how hard it is for small schools to make ends meet right now. And you factor in all the shit that the state tells you're mandated to do. What could public schools have done with that money right there?
Yeah.
A lot.
Well, that's what I say. Look how many
600
kids are
million
given
a year on sushi.
and this what Texas is doing to give school vouchers.
Yeah.
They're giving each kid in school $10,000. That's what's on the table.
I don't think that's exactly right. It's working though.
Well, some of them it won't help and they can't use it.
Our
But
superintendent
what-
explained it to me a little different. I mean, that is the money, but the poor kids that can't get into one of those private schools anyways,
Aren't
so
gonna
that
get it.
money's going to be sent to a rich kid to go to school.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What if they took that money? Because there's 25 kids to every teacher. So that's $250,000 per teacher
per room.
Yes.
or per room.
Yeah.
Per year.
Yeah.
What could the schools do with that? They could afford to have guys like us teaching their kids. God help them, but you could get the smart people to go in there and teach instead of someone who goes, I can't do anything else or this.
Right.
I saw on our Holly page this teacher explaining stuff, and she was writing that, and I had to sit and really look at the word to try to figure out what she had
was
just
saying.
typed.
And she's an educator.
And she's an educator.
We need to put more money into education, but also let's talk about the old people in this country. Social Security, all this money, Social Security, we can't fund Social Security. We don't have the money for it. Yeah, if you took away the trillions of dollars, Elon Musk is going to save $2 trillion out of this deal.
Who screwed the Social Security?
Who?
LBJ.
How did he do that?
He
Started
put
giving it
welfare and all those aided
All together?
programs all in one bunch because they didn't have the money to do it, and Social Security had more money
Had a
than they knew what
surplus.
to do with.
Right. So they started funding welfare, and then we started
and
seeing
all that money went in one pile, and we started losing it.
Yeah.
And that's what Texas is doing. When they started the lottery was put in
for the schools.
for the
Yeah,
schools.
schools ain't
And
getting
now the
shit.
school ain't getting shit out of it.
No.
And now they're going to give it to the private schools. You know what? You wouldn't need private schools. Why are the private schools there? Because the public schools are shit houses. That's right.
See,
You're exactly right.
Ski is no Democrat. I got a hard time disagreeing with you on that one because you're right. Another deal.
I don't know.
And on your money expenditures, one of the things everybody says is, what about that $5,000 hammer? Well, they used to say it about a coffee pot that they built to put in C-130s. Mm-hmm. Now, you got to realize C-130 is the ones that go out there and they fly into the hurricanes and stuff, and they were spilling coffee, and the coffee was wiping out their electronics. Mm-hmm. And so they developed a coffee pot that didn't leak when it
I got no problems with the government doing that shit, but
and
but
they
the rest
cost
of the planes,
about $10,000.
Okay.
And the reason that was because
it's cheaper than replacing your instruments.
Well, no, because all the technology and R&D that went into developing that, they're only going to sell 1,000 of them.
Right.
If I develop a light bulb, the first one might have cost me $10,000, but if I sell them for $1 a piece, I'm going to sell 1 billion of them.
Right.
I'm going to get my money back. Well, you're not going to do that with that coffee pot because nobody's going to pay that for a coffee pot.
and I understand there's certain things, but styrofoam cups, the fucking IRS.
Somebody's lining their pockets.
I don't understand.
I agree that.
I worked at Shepherd for a while, and I didn't drink coffee then. I was fucking 20, 21, 22, 23 years old, but they had a coffee pot upstairs in the office.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that the people worked in the office went down and got a 5-pound bag of Folgers coffee or something, or Dirty Duck coffee. They didn't have the time, but back then it was probably 3 brands, and that's what they had. Yeah. But I don't think the government was on the line for that kind of money. Whoever's been signing these checks needs to go to prison. But
They said not one check has been turned away in over 20 years at the U.S.
I told Tony I'm madder than fuck now. We didn't start billing them. I should have been billing them 20 years ago. I'm serious.
It would have gone through.
Yes, it would have. They didn't turn down nothing. I was going to send them an invoice now. I can't get an email.
How many airplanes have you saved from striking a goose?
There you
Because
go.
Take them out of the sky already.
Yeah. How many ditches have we ridden of tumbleweeds? I mean, this is all. It's all
You know, that's
ties back
weird
in.
because I had a guy contact me last year doing the goose study. Do you remember that?
No.
It was the goose study and windmills and stuff. They were doing out here, and he had a big government grant.
Should have
Never
done
heard-
it.
No. He was getting paid, not me,
Oh.
but wanted some information. I've never heard from him again. That's crazy. He called me 3 times in a week last year about this time.
Guy at Mississippi State University, that was one of the first things they did, or one of the first ripoffs that they found. A kid, his doctoral was why when you drop a piece of toast on the ground, does it land butter side down? He got paid over $50,000, and this was in the 70s. That's like a bunch of money. And you know what his answer was? If it didn't land butter side down, you buttered the wrong side.
But
that
That was his
story.
answer.
government spending is way out of control, and it's getting fixed.
Yep.
And when he first come out, I'll never forget, before the election, I heard him talking, or it might have been, no, it was before the election when he was in Detroit. For some reason, I was listening to talk radio, and there was a professor from Harvard, and he was ripping on Elon Musk, of course, because he worked for the government and he was an educator. He knew more than Elon Musk, and there's no way that our $5 trillion budget that the United States has, there's no possible way that you can cut $1 trillion or $2 trillion out of it. It's just not possible. Well, what are you going to do with all that money that it's got to go to right places. We're finding out that we might be able to save $3 or $4 trillion when it's all done.
Might be able to balance the books when they go collect all this
Boy, that'd
stuff.
be nice. And that's,
Well, one thing that I want to say when you brought up Trump and stuff, the DEI statement that he made, that was his first mean tweet, and I love it.
Yeah, he's done. He's
Remember, we voted for those mean tweets,
We
and
did.
we got one.
we're 2 weeks and 2 days in, and he's done more than any president's done in one term already.
He
And he's
did
getting a lot
that the
done.
first day
Yep,
because
and
he
he's-
stayed up to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning doing stuff.
Best thing ever happened to Donald Trump in this country was him losing, and for 4 years festering about all the people that backstabbed him, all the stupid shit that our government does, and how he would do this different and that different. And he got a second chance. And he's doing it, and he's surrounding himself with people that are like-minded.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we got
you
rid
look
of
at
all
it.
the bureaucrats.
You say Democrat, Republican? Mm-hmm. Who was Elon Musk? But who was
Democrat.
Trump?
Democrat.
Trump was
Yep.
Who was RFK Jr.?
Democrat.
and Tulsi.
Tulsi,
Yeah.
Democrat.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean,
and they're some of his right hand people.
And
he don't care.
No.
He does not care.
he wants people best, and that's what you should
That's
do.
right.
And
Exactly.
And the people that don't
That's
like
his
him.
DEI, the best man for the job, best woman for the
And,
job.
and I have a guy that listens to this all the time that I really respect and I like a lot. And he constantly, there's no such thing as the deep state. I think there is. They may not be called the deep state, but there's a group in Washington, D.C. that has been running and getting rich off of us for years.
Yep.
And it's been going on since day started.
When Trump first said he was going to clean out the government, I've read, on my pages, because they're mostly Democrats, and I still love them, that I worked with. And I'm probably the only union rep that was ever a Democrat. I mean, a Republican, because most of them are Democrats. But I was a Republican. And I did vote for Bill Clinton. And really and truly, he ran a good, he was not a very good person, just like we talked about Jimmy Carter, one of the nicest people.
Terrible president.
Terrible president.
Bill Clinton was not a bad president.
We've talked
Clinton
about it
was
before.
was a good president,
there weren't that many
but not a very
differences.
good person.
No.
And so
If he's married to that fucking battle axe, would you not have been cheating?
I'm telling you, I don't know, and the only reason he didn't get a divorce is because he knew she'd kill him. And the reason they can't prove Trump is the electoral votes, because those ballot counters were all put in the warehouse in Arkansas, and they were blown up. And
Tennessee.
in Tennessee, sorry. And the first thing that happened was the FBI came in and said, it's our jurisdiction. It was not their jurisdiction, but they came in and said, get out, it's ours. And we never got a report on that. And I hope Trump
I hope he gets to the bottom of it.
gets to the bottom of that.
Like I told somebody, agree or disagree with what he's doing, at least he's doing something.
Yeah.
I mean,
he did
he's
more the
doing-
first day.
He shouldn't have blindsided anybody by what he's doing. He spent 4 years telling you, if I get a second chance, I'm going to do this, 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 and this in
Yeah.
this order. And
Yeah.
I mean, here it is.
he's not done anything that he hasn't said.
not one
and we
thing.
voted for him to do that.
Yeah.
So by God, if he comes to me and says, Ski, I need you to take out the trash, I'm going to Washington and I'm going to take out the trash.
Yeah.
Because that's what he asked me to do.
And it also just got released that Panama has waived all fees for U.S. naval vessels
go
to use up and do the count. There will be no charge from now on that.
Well, I mean, we always had control of, and I don't know if you know how all that came about, but back when Carter gave up the
Controlling interest.
control period, and opened it up, they developed a system to operate the canal, but they didn't operate the ports. And China came in and took the ports. Actually, China did not. Hong Kong got the vote, actually got the bid, and we helped support it. The U.S. probably paid more of the money to get that contract for Hong Kong.
And then when China took them over.
And then China, because Hong Kong is taken care of by the British, and the British will never turn loose of that. 2 years later, boom, British are like, fuck, wait,
I wonder what's going on in Hong Kong these days. I wonder if it's just like everywhere else in China.
I know, long story, but I used to own stock. I bought penny stock, $2,500 penny stock in Paul's Place. And it was a delicatessen back in the 80s when they didn't have yuppie stuff.
Yeah.
And they were in Colorado. Actually, they were in San Diego, and they started there, and then they developed, we sold stock and stuff, and my stock kept splitting, and everybody's telling me, sell it. I said, not till I'm a millionaire, not till I'm a millionaire. I'm just, let it ride, not till I'm a millionaire. So they opened up in Colorado colleges, and they went big there, and they went into San Francisco and L.A., and that's where they got in trouble because they got bought out, controlling interest by some Chinese nationalists that own a lot of stuff, and they split the stock, which put me at about $800,000.
Oh, shit.
And froze it. You could not sell it until all the, because when they split, that puts whatever, if you have 1 million shares of stock out, now you got 2 million.
Yeah.
And they got to sell those new ones before you can sell yours. And they took it into Tiananmen Square. And guess when that was?
Right before the massacre happened.
Yep. There was two companies before us allowed in China, Kentucky Fried Chicken and Coca-Cola. And we were the third company to go in there, and we had a corner building in Tiananmen Square, and I got to watch it go poof on the news.
At $800,000.
At $800,000. And that was in the, early 80s?
I think 83 or 81. It's crazy about Hong Kong was such a place everybody wanted to go, and everybody at World War II, and China took it over, and there's nothing there now. I mean, I'm still the same place, I'm assuming, but you don't hear much. But it was you didn't even know about that probably, did you?
No.
It was London. It was English colony, an English colony, and it was great, vibrant, growing. And then on the other side of it was just a shitload.
Yeah.
And then boom, they had a 100-year lease.
Yeah.
And when their 100-year lease was up, China took that shit back.
Yeah.
They didn't renegotiate or nothing.
So the 100-year lease went up.
Up until the
When it was
day
done.
that China took it over, Great Britain was saying, "Oh, we're going to protect you. We're going to protect." Oh, sorry.
We're done. That was
We're
it.
done.
But their 100-year lease, when it was over, it was over.
And that's how they got control of the Panama Canal. And so, because they took over Hong Kong, and then when Panama lease came to be renewed, it just went straight to China.
Right.
And so
the 16 days that he's been in,
Yeah.
we no longer are paying no money to go through there.
Yeah.
And the Chinese are out. So
yeah. And that's what I mean. All these countries that everybody you're charging tariffs to them. There's 100% tariff on everything we send to Canada. They double charge us. Mexico's the same way. And
all we're doing is making it more fair for us.
if the companies aren't paying it,
The people are.
the government is.
Yeah.
You know, just to make it look good.
Right.
Oh yeah, we'll pay you just to get our stuff into your country,
Yeah.
and it's that way everywhere. And then we pay to get them, and Trump is stopping it. And let me tell you something. One other thing about that stuff in Panama that they found out is that your cell phones, everything that's made in China, in that chip, they could have a controlling button in every bit of it already built in. Because all those people that worked in China, the thing about China is they don't separate civilian and military.
No, everybody's
Everything
on the
is
same
military.
team. Yep.
Yeah, it's all on. So everybody that went to those places and they had barricades, you know, nobody in, nobody out unless we say, those could all be military personnel
Right.
working there, you know.
Yeah.
And all they have to do is open the container and get the guns out. And so all these ports across the nation, and, you know, look at Australia, we talked about that earlier, Australia and all these other ports that have shipping going on, millions and billions of dollars out of the U.S. New Orleans, Houston, what's up in Maine? Portland, and all those big, you know, industrial shipping. Even in Indiana, Gary, Indiana, you know, they use
The Mississippi River.
they use the St. Lawrence Seaway. Don't they go through the
To go St. Lawrence, you would go to Lake Ontario to Erie and come
yeah.
down that way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all
But
kinds
anyway,
of
all
shipping.
those, and what do they have in common? Everything that gets loaded is by a Chinese-made loading equipment.
Yeah.
And so you want to shut it down? Press that button.
Right.
It's like I told people about the difference between the Air Force and the Army. When I went through basic training, they taught me 167 ways to kill somebody. Air Force, press that button.
You know, my Threads deal on Instagram has got me down as a liberal, I guess, because that's my whole Threads is liberal feeds, and it's funny. It's funny to read the shit these people talk about. And one guy yesterday said, I went to the grocery store and I told him I'm just buying Canadian products. I wrote in there, I said, "Bitch, you're fucking hungry. There's not a lot of made in
You got
Canada shit."
maple syrup.
I bet you're not even liberal when it comes to toilet paper in the bathroom.
Oh yeah. When I read their stuff, it cracks me up about we're fixing to show them this and that. Listen, America is the world's consumer.
Yep.
We can afford to put tariffs on you.
We buy
because-
more shit that nobody needs.
Yes, that's exactly. We're the most gluttonous people in the world.
Yeah.
That's exactly that. You said it 100% right. Okay, we got to get off here. We got another one of these to do too.
No, I canceled it.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
They got a mass shooting in Sweden right now. Gun-free place. You got to get to the nursing home.
Yep.
All right, we got to get.
Okay.
Thank you. God bless
Thanks,
y'all.
Keith. Yeah, hey, I really appreciate this.
Appreciate
This
you
was a lot of
inviting me
fun.
down here.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We'll have to do it again sometime. It was a lot of fun.
You know where I live.
Yes, sir.
I'm
All right,
not going to
everybody.
change my phone number.
Y'all watch for deer.
Bye.
I'm sorry to hear.